The alien world of Krylos 7 was a place of stark contrasts. Its skies shimmered with hues of violet and gold, while its surface was scarred by jagged mountain ranges and sprawling deserts that stretched endlessly under the twin suns. It was a planet teeming with life, though not all of it peaceful. For centuries, the Krylonians had been a proud people, known for their ingenuity and determination. But now they found themselves cornered like prey in their own home. Above their atmosphere loomed an armada of ships belonging to the Concordium, a coalition of advanced species who ruled vast swaths of the galaxy with cold efficiency. These aliens viewed themselves as guardians of order, tasked with maintaining balance among the stars. To them, Krylos 7 was nothing more than a troublemaker, a rogue civilization dabbling in forbidden technologies that could upset the delicate peace they worked so hard to enforce. For weeks, the blockade tightened around Krylos 7, cutting off every route for escape or aid. Supplies dwindled, power grids faltered, and panic began to spread through the population. Desperate broadcasts were sent out into the void, pleading for help from anyone willing to listen. But no one came. No ship broke through the wall of steel and energy surrounding them. No voice responded to their cries for mercy. Among those watching this tragedy unfold were the Zoraxians, a dominant species within the Concordium. Their sleek insectoid forms moved with precision on board their command vessel, where they observed the blockade with detached satisfaction. "So let them squirm," said Commander Vrax, his mandibles clicking softly as he spoke. "This is what happens when lesser beings try to rise above their station." But it wasn't just the plight of Krylos 7 that amused him. It was also the absence of humanity. Humans, once dismissed as primitive and chaotic, had risen unexpectedly in recent decades to become a force to be reckoned with. Yet here, in this moment of crisis, they were nowhere to be seen. "Where are your precious humans now?" Vrax sneered at his subordinate, a younger Zoraxian officer named Trellis. "They claim to stand for freedom, for unity among species, but look at them. Silent, useless, just like always." Trellis shifted uncomfortably, her antennae twitching slightly. She had heard stories about humans, how they defied impossible odds, how they adapted and thrived even when faced with overwhelming challenges. But she kept her thoughts to herself. After all, there was no denying the facts. No human fleet had arrived to challenge the Concordium. No sign of resistance stirred in the blackness of space. As night fell over Krylos 7, the blockade remained unbroken. The only sounds were the hum of engines and the faint crackle of static from failed communication attempts. Hope seemed like a distant memory, fading faster with each passing day. Many Krylonians whispered amongst themselves that they were truly alone, that no one would come to save them. And then something changed. It started as a flicker on the edge of sensor readings, a blip so small it might have been dismissed as interference. But it grew stronger, sharper, until it resolved into the unmistakable silhouette of a ship. A single solitary vessel emerged from the darkness, gliding silently toward the blockade like a phantom. Its design was unlike anything the Concordium had ever encountered. Sleek and angular, it bore markings unfamiliar, yet oddly familiar, a mix of bold lines and symbols that hinted at both strength and creativity. At first glance, it didn't seem particularly impressive. Smaller than most warships, it lacked the imposing bulk of the Concordium's cruisers. And yet, there was something about it, something unsettling. On the bridge of the lead Concordium, "Ship!" Alarms began to blare as sensors scrambled to identify the newcomer. "What is that?" Commander Vrax demanded, his voice sharp with irritation. He leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes narrowing as he studied the intruder. "Is it some kind of trick?" Trellis hesitated, her antennas quivering as she processed the data streaming in. "Sir, I think it might be human." Vrax froze, his mandibles snapping shut. For a moment, disbelief clouded his expression. Then anger surged, hot and fierce. "Impossible," he spat. "Humans wouldn't dare interfere here. They're cowards, hiding behind their empty words of solidarity." Yet doubt crept into his mind. Why else would a ship appear now, seemingly out of nowhere? What other species would risk confronting the full might of the Concordium for the sake of a planet they barely knew? The mysterious vessel slowed to a halt just outside the blockade perimeter. Its engines pulsed faintly, casting an eerie glow against the backdrop of stars. No weapons fired, no transmissions came through. It simply hovered there, silent and enigmatic, daring the Concordium to make the next move. On Krylos 7, whispers of hope reignited. Could it really be true? Had someone finally answered their call for help, or was this merely another cruel twist of fate? Far above, aboard the phantom ship, a figure stood on the bridge, gazing out at the blockade with steely resolve. Captain Elena Vega adjusted her uniform, her lips curling into a faint smile. Her crew watched her intently, waiting for orders. They didn't need to ask why they were here. They already knew, because sometimes the universe needed reminding. Humanity doesn't turn away when others are in need, not anymore. And with that thought, Elena gave the command that would change everything. Engage. The phantom ship hung motionless in the void, its presence an unspoken challenge to the Concordium blockade. On the bridge of the lead cruiser, Commander Vrax bristled with frustration and disbelief. He had spent decades enforcing the Concordium's ironclad laws, crushing rebellions and silencing dissent without hesitation. Yet now this human vessel dared to defy him? "Identify yourself," he barked into the communication console, his voice sharp enough to cut through steel. The transmission crackled across the void, echoing into the silence surrounding the mysterious ship. For a moment there was no response. Then, just as Vrax was about to order his weapon systems primed, a calm, measured voice filled the airwaves. "This is Captain Elena Vega of the United Earth Fleet vessel Odyssey. We've received distress signals from Krylos 7 and are here to investigate." Trellis glanced at her commander, her antennae twitching nervously. She had studied human history during her training, how they rose from fractured tribes on their homeworld to become explorers of the stars, but she had never imagined meeting one face to face, or rather voice to voice. There was something unnerving about the way Captain Vega spoke. Not arrogant, not pleading, but steady and resolute, as if she already knew she held the upper hand. Vrax's mandibles clicked furiously. "You have no authority here, human. This matter concerns the Concordium alone. Leave immediately or we will open fire." Captain Vega's reply came swiftly, laced with quiet confidence. "We're aware of your claims against Krylos 7. However, cutting off an entire planet's resources and leaving millions to suffer isn't justice. It's cruelty. If you truly believe in maintaining peace, then let us mediate." Mediation? The word struck Trellis like a thunderclap. In all her years serving under Vrax, she had never once heard him suggest negotiation when brute force could achieve the same result. Humans, it seemed, operated differently. Vrax scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. "Your species is weak, divided, and irrelevant. Do not insult us by pretending you can impose your ideals on superior beings." Elena's laughter rippled over the comms, a sound so unexpected that even Vrax paused mid-breath. It wasn't mocking. Instead, it carried warmth and amusement, as though she found his arrogance endearing. "Superior?" she said lightly. "If you're so sure of that, why don't you prove it?" Before Vrax could respond, the Odyssey moved. With fluid grace, it slid sideways, positioning itself directly between the Concordium fleet and Krylos 7. Its shields shimmered faintly as they powered up, casting a soft blue glow against the blackness of space. "What is she doing?" Trellis whispered, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen. "She's bluffing," Vrax growled, though uncertainty flickered behind his compound eyes. They wouldn't risk starting a war with the Concordium. But Elena wasn't bluffing. Moments later, the Odyssey broadcasted a signal, a visual feed displayed on every screen aboard the Concordium ships. It showed grainy footage of devastated Krylonian cities, starving children huddled together, and elders too frail to survive much longer. The images were raw, gut-wrenching, and impossible to ignore. "These people deserve better than what you're giving them," Elena said, her voice firm but tinged with compassion. "Let us deliver humanitarian aid. That's all we ask." A murmur spread among the Zoraxian crew. Some exchanged uneasy glances, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even Trellis felt a pang of doubt. Was this really justice? Or was it merely vengeance disguised as law? Vrax slammed a clawed hand onto the console. Enough! You think emotional manipulation will sway us? Fine. We'll show you how the Concordium handles defiance. He signaled for his fleet to surround. The Odyssey, boxing it in with dozens of heavily armed cruisers. Energy cannons hummed as they charged, ready to obliterate the smaller ship in seconds. Yet Eleanor didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned closer to her own console, speaking softly into the mic. Initiate Protocol Echo. Her crew sprang into action, fingers flying over controls as the ship's systems roared to life. Suddenly, the Odyssey vanished. Not destroyed, but cloaked entirely. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, leaving only empty space where it had been. What sorcery is this? Vrax snarled, his voice rising to a near shriek. Sensors scrambled wildly, searching for any trace of the missing vessel. How could such a primitive species possess technology capable of evading detection? Then chaos erupted, from seemingly nowhere. Bursts of energy lit up the darkness, striking precisely at key points along the Concordium formation. Shields buckled, engines sputtered, and communication lines faltered. None of the attacks caused catastrophic damage. They weren't meant to. Instead, they disrupted the blockade just enough to create openings. Retreat! Vrax ordered, panic creeping into his usually composed demeanor. His ship scrambled to regroup, but the Odyssey struck again and again, always staying one step ahead. It was as if the humans knew exactly where to hit, and when. Below on Krylos 7, stunned citizens watched the spectacle unfold in awe. For weeks, they had resigned themselves to despair, believing no one would come to their aid. Now hope surged back to life as cargo pods descended from the heavens, carrying food, medicine, and supplies dropped by the elusive human ship. Elena's voice crackled over a wide-band frequency, reaching both the Concordium and the Krylonians below. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about doing what's right. Let these people live. If you want to negotiate terms, we're willing to talk. Otherwise, her tone hardened ever so slightly. We'll keep finding ways to help them. Back on the Concordium flagship, Trellis stared at the view screen, her mind racing. Humans weren't supposed to be this clever or this bold. Everything she thought she knew about them was being rewritten before her very eyes. Vrax seethed, his pride wounded and his authority shaken. But even he couldn't deny the truth staring him in the face. Humanity was not the weak, fragmented species he'd dismissed them as. They were resourceful, unpredictable, and utterly fearless, and worst of all, they were winning. As the blockade crumbled around them, Trellis turned to her commander, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and admiration. "Sir, what do we do now?" Vrax didn't answer. He couldn't. For the first time in his long career, he didn't know. The Concordium fleet reeled from the unexpected assault, their once unshakable confidence shaken to its core. The Odyssey had proven itself more than a mere nuisance. It was a force to be reckoned with. Though the human ship hadn't inflicted catastrophic damage, its precision strikes had exposed glaring weaknesses in the blockade's formation. To Commander Vrax, this was an unforgivable humiliation, a stain on the Concordium's reputation that could not go unanswered. "We cannot allow them to continue," Vrax growled, pacing the bridge of his flagship like a caged predator. His mandibles clicked furiously as he barked orders at his crew. "Recalibrate the sensors. Deploy long-range tracking drones. I want every possible exit route monitored. That ship isn't invisible. It's just hiding." Trellis stood nearby, her antenna twitching nervously as she processed her commander's words. She admired Vrax's determination, but doubt gnawed at her. Humans were resourceful, she'd seen proof of that firsthand, but they weren't invincible. What if their defiance stemmed not from arrogance, but from something deeper? Something the Concordium didn't understand. "They're helping Krylos 7 rebuild," Trellis ventured cautiously, glancing at the view screen where images of cargo pods descending to the planet flickered intermittently. "They've already delivered food and medical supplies. Shouldn't we focus on containing the situation before it escalates further?" Vrax whirled around, his multifaceted eyes narrowing dangerously. Containment? Is that what you suggest after they humiliated us in front of the entire fleet? He jabbed a clawed finger toward the screen. If we let them succeed here, other species will see weakness in the Concordium. They'll think they can defy us too. Trailis swallowed hard, knowing better than to argue further. Yet deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's actions carried a significance. Beyond mere rebellion, there was purpose in their methods, a calculated blend of strategy and compassion that left even seasoned warriors like Vrax floundering. Meanwhile, aboard the Odyssey, Captain Elena Vega surveyed the aftermath of their daring maneuver with quiet satisfaction. Her crew worked tirelessly around her, monitoring sensor readings, coordinating supply drops, and preparing for whatever came next. Despite the tension crackling through the air, there was an undeniable sense of unity among them, a shared belief in their mission. "How are things looking downstairs?" Elena asked, turning to Lieutenant Marcus Chen, her second-in-command. Marcus was a wiry man with sharp features and an even sharper mind, known for his knack for problem-solving under pressure. "Krylonians are responding well to the aid," Marcus replied, pulling up data on his tablet. "Food distribution centers. Our operational and medical teams are stabilizing critical cases. Morale is rising. They're calling us the Ghosts of Hope." Elena chuckled softly, though her expression remained thoughtful. "Good, but this isn't over yet. The Concordium won't back down easily. We need to stay one step ahead." As if on cue, alarms blared across the bridge. A flurry of red lights bathed the room as the ship's AI announced, "Incoming transmission." From the Concordium flagship. Elena nodded at Ensign Priya Patel, seated at the communications console. "Patch it through." Commander Vrax's face appeared on the main view screen, his insectoid features twisted with barely contained fury. "Captain Vega," he spat, his voice dripping with venom, "your antics end now. Surrender your vessel or we will destroy it." Elena leaned forward slightly, meeting his gaze with unwavering calm. "Destroying a humanitarian mission won't reflect well on the Concordium, Commander. Are you willing to risk that kind of fallout?" For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Vrax's mandibles clicked sharply. "You underestimate us, human. You think clever tricks and cheap theatrics make you untouchable. Let me remind you. You're outnumbered and outgunned." "I'm aware of the odds," Elena said evenly, "but numbers don't always guarantee victory. Sometimes heart does." Her words seemed to strike a nerve. Vrax hesitated, his compound eyes narrowing as though trying to decipher some hidden meaning behind her statement. Before he could respond, Elena continued, "If you truly believe in justice, then prove it. Lift the blockade and we'll withdraw without further interference." "And if we refuse?" Vrax challenged, his tone laced with menace. "Then you'll find out exactly what humanity is capable of," Elena replied, her voice steady and resolute. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the crew of the Odyssey in tense silence. Elena turned to her team, her expression firm. "They're going to escalate. Everyone prepare for the worst." On Krylos 7, the arrival of the humans had sparked something remarkable. For weeks, despair had gripped the population, sapping their will to resist. Now, hope surged back to life, fueled by stories of the phantom ship that defied the mighty Concordium. Crowds gathered in the streets, cheering as more supply pods descended from the heavens. Even the planet's leaders, who had been paralyzed by fear, found renewed courage. In the capital city, Elder Mira, a frail but fiercely determined woman, addressed a crowd of thousands. Her voice trembled with emotion as she spoke. "The humans have shown us that we are not alone. They fight for us when no one else would. It is time we fought alongside them." Her words ignited a fire within the Krylonians. Ordinary citizens began organizing resistance efforts, sabotaging Concordium surveillance equipment, and smuggling vital resources to remote areas. Though their actions were small compared to the might of the blockade, they sent a clear message. Krylos 7 would not surrender. Back in orbit, the Concordium launched a new offensive. Dozens of ships converged on suspected locations of the Odyssey, firing indiscriminately in hopes of flushing it out. But the human ship remained elusive, slipping through their grasp like smoke. Frustrated, Vrax ordered his fleet to target Krylos 7 directly. If they couldn't catch the Odyssey, they would crush the source of its support. Energy beams rained down on key infrastructure sites, causing widespread destruction. The message was clear: cooperate or face annihilation. When news of the Pum attacks reached the Odyssey, Elena's jaw tightened with resolve. Turning to her crew, she said simply, "It's time to show them who we are." With that, the Odyssey reappeared, not cloaked but fully visible, positioned protectively between the Concordium fleet and the planet below. Its engines roared as it unleashed a barrage of counterattacks, forcing the enemy ships to retreat. Temporarily, through the chaos, a single transmission echoed across all frequencies. Elena's voice rang out, calm yet commanding. "To the people of Krylos 7, stand strong. To the Concordium, know this: humanity doesn't back down when faced with tyranny, and neither will we." As the battle raged on, both sides realized the stakes had shifted. This wasn't just about Krylos 7 anymore. It was about proving whose vision of the future would prevail. And for the first time, the Concordium began to question whether their version of order was worth the cost. The battle between the Odyssey and the Concordium fleet reached a fever pitch, each side locked in a deadly dance of strategy and survival. The human ship darted through space like a shadow, striking with precision before vanishing again into the void. Yet despite its agility, the odds remained grim. For every strike it landed, the Concordium retaliated with overwhelming force, their numbers ensuring that no single blow could break them. Commander Vrax stood rigid on the bridge of his flagship, his mind racing as he tried to anticipate the next move of the infuriatingly elusive humans. His frustration boiled over when yet another volley from the Odyssey disrupted his carefully laid plans. "Enough!" he roared, slamming his claws onto the console. "This ends now." Trailis glanced at her commander, concern flickering across her features. She had seen this look before, a dangerous mix of desperation and rage. When Vrax felt cornered, he tended to lash out recklessly, and reckless actions rarely ended well. "Sir," she ventured cautiously, "perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Their tactics are unconventional. They're not fighting to win, but to protect Krylos 7. If we focus solely on neutralizing the planet's defenses, they may lose their advantage." Vrax turned sharply toward her, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with barely contained fury. "You think I don't see that? Of course they're protecting the planet. It's their weakness. Destroy Krylos 7, and the humans will have nothing left to fight for." Trailis hesitated, her antennae twitching nervously. While logically sound, the plan carried risks beyond tactical considerations. The destruction of an entire world would stain the Concordium's reputation irreparably. Other species might rise against them, emboldened by humanity's defiance. Still, she knew better than to argue further. Instead, she nodded silently and returned to her station. On board the Odyssey, Captain Elena Vega watched the Concordium fleet regroup with growing unease. Sensor readings indicated a shift in their targeting priorities. Instead of focusing on her ship, they were redirecting firepower toward critical infrastructure on Krylos 7. Power plants, water purification facilities, and communication hubs became primary targets, plunging parts of the planet into chaos. "They're trying to force us into a direct confrontation," Marcus Chen muttered, analyzing data streams on his tablet. "If we stay hidden, they'll keep hammering the planet until there's nothing left." Elena clenched her fists, her knuckles whitening as she processed the implications. Every fiber of her being screamed to charge headlong into battle, to shield Krylos 7 at any cost. But she knew such a move would be suicide. The Odyssey was fast and resourceful, but it couldn't withstand the full might of the Concordium fleet, not without help. "We need reinforcements," Ensign Priya Patel suggested, breaking the tense silence on the bridge. "There must be other human ships nearby who can assist." Elena shook her head firmly. "We're too far from Earth, and calling for backup would take weeks, even months. By then it'll be too late." Her gaze swept over her crew, meeting each pair of eyes with quiet determination. "No, we have to do this ourselves. We're all Krylos 7 has right now." Her words struck a chord among the crew. These weren't just orders. They were a call to action, a reminder of why they had chosen to serve aboard the Odyssey. Humanity wasn't fighting for glory or conquest. It was fighting because it was the right thing to do. Lieutenant Chen leaned forward, his sharp mind already working through possibilities. What if we use their arrogance against them? They underestimate us because we're smaller and fewer. What if we make them think we've tapped out? Elena raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Go on. Chen gestured animatedly as he explained. We let them believe they've pushed us to our limits. We fake damage, reduce our movements, maybe even send out a distress signal. Once they commit fully to attacking Krylos 7, we hit them where it hurts, their command structure. Without centralized control, their fleet will fall apart. Elena considered the plan, weighing its risks and rewards. It was bold, risky, and exactly the kind of gamble humanity excelled at. With a decisive nod, she gave the order, make it happen. Meanwhile, on Krylos 7, the people braced themselves for the worst. Explosions lit up the night sky as Concordium ships bombarded key locations, sending shockwaves rippling through cities, already teetering on the brink of collapse. Despite the devastation, however, resistance efforts intensified. Ordinary citizens banded together, using whatever tools they had to sabotage enemy operations. Guerrilla fighters targeted landing parties sent to secure ground positions, while engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged systems. In the capital city, Elder Mira addressed a crowd gathered in a makeshift shelter. Her frail frame belied the fire burning within her. Do not lose hope, she urged, her voice steady despite the tremors in her hands. The humans are still with us. Together, we can endure. Her words resonated deeply, reigniting the spirit of resilience that had defined the Krylonians for generations. Even as buildings crumbled around them, they refused to surrender. Hours later, the trap was set. The Odyssey allowed itself to be cornered, feigning heavy damage as Concordium ships closed in. Energy blasts tore through its shields, leaving visible scorch marks along its hull. A distress signal blared across frequencies, pleading for assistance. That would never come. Vrax smirked triumphantly as he watched the crippled human ship drift helplessly. Finally, he growled, leaning forward in his command chair, finish it. But just as the Concordium fleet prepared to deliver the killing blow, the Odyssey sprang back to life. Its engines flared brightly as it surged forward, unleashing a devastating salvo aimed directly at the Concordium flagship. Secondary explosions rippled through the formation as the humans exploited gaps in the enemy's defenses. Caught off guard, Vrax scrambled to regain control. Retreat! Regroup immediately! It was too late. The Odyssey's attack had severed vital communication, lines cutting off the flagship from the rest of the fleet. Without centralized command, the once unstoppable armada descended into disarray. As the Concordium ship scattered, Elena's voice echoed across all frequencies. To the people of Krylos 7, hold on. To the Concordium, know this. Humanity doesn't stand down when faced with tyranny, and neither will we. For the first time, doubt crept into Trellis's mind. Perhaps the humans weren't so weak after all. Perhaps strength wasn't measured solely by power, but by courage, unity, and heart. The Concordium fleet was in disarray, its once impenetrable blockade crumbling under the relentless pressure of the Odyssey. Commander Vrax's flagship limped through space, its systems damaged, and its crew scrambling to repair critical failures. The humans had struck a crippling blow, not just to the ship itself, but to the very foundation of the Concordium's authority. Without centralized command, the remaining vessels floundered, their coordinated assault devolving into chaos. On the bridge of his battered cruiser, Vrax seethed with impotent fury. His mandibles clicked furiously as he watched sensor readings flash across the screens, showing fragments of his fleet retreating or regrouping haphazardly. "This is unacceptable," he snarled, slamming a clawed hand against the console. "How could one ship, one tiny ship, do this to us?" Trellis stood nearby, her antennae twitching nervously as she processed the unfolding disaster. For the first time in her career, she questioned not only her commander's decisions, but also the core principles of the Concordium itself. Was maintaining order truly worth the cost, Or had they become so blinded by their own sense of superiority that they failed to see the harm they caused? "Sir," she said cautiously, stepping forward, "perhaps it's time to reassess our strategy. Humanity has shown they're willing to fight for others, even at great personal risk. If we continue down this path, we risk losing far more than just Krylos 7. Vrax turned sharply, his multifaceted eyes narrowing dangerously. "Are you questioning my leadership, Lieutenant?" "No, sir," Trellis replied quickly, though her voice carried a hint of defiance. "I'm questioning whether destroying an entire planet and alienating countless species in the process is worth preserving the Concordium's pride." Her words hung in the air like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Vrax stared at her for a long moment before turning away, his expression unreadable. He didn't dismiss her outright, but neither did he acknowledge her concerns. Instead, he barked orders to prepare for another wave of attacks, determined to crush the humans no matter the cost. Aboard the Odyssey, Captain Elena Vega surveyed the battlefield with cautious optimism. The Concordium fleet was reeling, their formations fractured and their morale shaken. Yet victory was far from certain. Every strike the humans made came at a price. The Odyssey's shields were weakening, its engines straining under the constant demand for speed and precision. The crew worked tirelessly, patching up damage and rerouting power to keep the ship operational. Elena moved among them, offering words of encouragement and lending a hand wherever needed. She knew how much was riding on their shoulders, not just the fate of Krylos 7, but the future perception of humanity across the galaxy. Failure wasn't an option. "How are we holding up?" she asked Marcus Chen, who was monitoring the ship's status at his station. "We're hanging in there," Marcus replied, his tone tight with tension. "But we can't keep this up forever. We've got maybe 2 more engagements left before." "We're toast," Elena nodded grimly. "Then we'll make those engagements count." At the communications console, Ensign Priya Patel turned toward Elena, her face pale but resolute. "Captain, I've intercepted transmissions from some of the Concordium ships. They're starting to question their orders. Some are even refusing to fire on civilian targets." Elena's eyes widened slightly. This was unexpected, but not unwelcome. It seemed the tide of doubt spreading through the enemy ranks was growing stronger. Perhaps humanity's actions were having a deeper impact than anyone had anticipated. "Keep monitoring those channels," Elena instructed. "If their unity continues to fracture, we might have a chance to end this without further bloodshed." On Krylos 7, the people fought back with everything they had. What began as scattered acts of resistance had evolved into a full-blown uprising. Guerrilla fighters armed with makeshift weapons ambushed Concordium patrols, while engineers worked around the clock to restore vital infrastructure. Even children joined the effort, carrying messages between resistance cells and tending to the wounded. In the capital city, Elder Mira walked among the ruins, offering comfort to those who had lost loved ones and homes. Her frail body bore the weight of exhaustion, yet her spirit remained unbroken. "We must hold on," she told anyone who would listen. "The humans have given us hope. Now it's our turn to show them what Krylonians are made of." Her words ignited a fire within the population. Ordinary citizens transformed into warriors overnight, united by a shared purpose: survival. Together they proved that even the most oppressed could rise up when pushed too far. Back in orbit, the Odyssey launched its final gambit. Using data gathered during the battle, Elena identified a critical vulnerability in the Concordium fleet: their reliance on automated drone networks to coordinate attacks. By targeting these drones, the humans could sever the remaining threads of communication tying the fleet together. "It's risky," Marcus warned as the plan unfolded. "If we miss, they'll counterattack with everything they've got." "We don't have a choice," Elena replied firmly. "It's now or never." With precision honed over weeks of combat, the Odyssey darted through the chaos, dodging enemy fire as it homed in on the drone hubs. One by one, the hubs exploded in bursts of light, sending shockwaves rippling through the Concordium formation. Ships faltered, drifting aimlessly as their guidance systems failed. Through the view screen, Elena watched as the enemy fleet unraveled before her eyes. Victory was within reach, but it came at a cost. The Odyssey shuddered violently as another blast rocked its hull, forcing the crew to brace themselves against collapsing consoles. "We're taking heavy damage," Priya shouted, her voice tinged with panic. "Stay focused," Elena commanded, her voice cutting through the noise like steel. "We're almost there." As the last drone hub detonated, the Concordium fleet broke apart entirely. Ships retreated, in disarray, abandoning their positions around Kralos 7. The blockade was broken. For a moment, silence reigned aboard the Odyssey. Then, slowly, the crew erupted into cheers, their voices echoing through the battered corridors of the ship. Against all odds, they had succeeded. But Elena allowed herself only a brief smile before turning back to the task at hand. The battle may have been won, but the war for hearts and minds was far from over. Through the view screen, she gazed at Krylos 7 below, its surface scarred but alive with newfound hope. "Humanity doesn't stand down," she murmured softly, almost to herself. "Not when there's still good to be done." And somewhere deep within the remnants of the Concordium fleet, Trellis watched the same scene unfold, her antennae quivering with emotion. For the first time, she understood why humanity inspired such loyalty and fear. The Concordium fleet was in full retreat, its ships scattering like leaves caught in a storm. For the first time in centuries, the mighty coalition had been humbled, not by superior numbers or advanced technology, but by ingenuity, resilience, and sheer determination. The Odyssey hovered silently above Krylos 7, its battered hull a testament to the sacrifices made during the battle. Though victorious, the human crew knew their work wasn't done yet. Captain Elena Vega stood on the bridge, her arms crossed as she stared out at the remnants of the blockade drifting away into the void. Her expression was calm, but beneath it lay an ocean of emotion, relief, pride, exhaustion, and a quiet resolve that refused to waver. She turned to her crew, meeting each pair of eyes with gratitude and respect. "You've all done something extraordinary today," she said, her voice steady despite the fatigue weighing on her shoulders. "But this isn't just about us. It's about showing the galaxy what humanity stands for, and proving that even the smallest acts of courage can change the course of history." Her words resonated deeply among the crew. Each member had played a vital role in the battle, from engineers patching up critical systems under fire to pilots executing maneuvers that defied logic. They weren't just soldiers, they were representatives of Earth, embodying the values of compassion, unity, and perseverance that defined their species. Below on Krylos 7, the people erupted into celebration. Streets once filled with despair now buzzed with life as citizens cheered and embraced one another. Fires burned brightly in the night sky, not as symbols of destruction, but as beacons of hope. Eldamira stood atop the ruins of what had once been the Capitol building, her frail frame silhouetted against the flames. Her voice carried over the crowd, trembling yet powerful. "Today, we owe our lives to the humans who fought for us," she declared, raising her hands toward the heavens. "They came when no one else would. They stood with us when we thought we were alone. Let us never forget their bravery, or the lesson they have taught us, that strength lies not in weapons or power, but in heart." Her words ignited a renewed sense of purpose among the Krylonians. What began as resistance had transformed into something greater, a promise to rebuild not just their world but their spirit. Together they vowed to honor the sacrifice made by the Odyssey's crew by forging a brighter future. Meanwhile, aboard the retreating Concordium flagship, Commander C. Vrak sat slumped in his command chair, his mandibles twitching faintly as he processed the magnitude of his defeat. Never before had he faced such humiliation. A single human ship dismantling an entire armada with nothing more than clever tactics and unwavering resolve. He clenched his claws tightly, struggling to reconcile his failure with the unshakable belief that the Concordium was invincible. Trellis approached cautiously, her antennae quivering as she gauged her commander's mood. She hesitated for a moment before speaking, her voice soft but firm. "Sir, perhaps it's time to reconsider our approach. Humanity has shown us that force alone cannot solve every problem." Vrax snapped his head toward her, his multifaceted eyes blazing with anger. "Are you suggesting we surrender, that we bow to these primitives?" "No, sir," Trellis replied quickly, though her tone carried a hint of defiance. "I'm suggesting we learn from them. Their methods may seem unconventional, but there's wisdom in how they value life and cooperation. If we continue to impose our will through fear and destruction, we'll lose far more than just battles. We'll lose allies, trust, and ultimately, our place in the galaxy." Vrax opened his mouth to retort, but no words came out. Deep down he knew Trellis was right. The cracks forming within the Concordium's ranks were undeniable. Many of his subordinates had begun questioning orders, while others outright refused to participate in further attacks on civilian targets. Even some allied species within the coalition were whispering about withdrawing support altogether. For the first time, doubt crept into Vrax's mind. Could it be possible that humanity's actions weren't merely reckless defiance, but a reflection of something deeper, something worth considering? Back aboard the Odyssey, Eleanor received an unexpected transmission. On the view screen appeared the face of Ambassador Zareen, a high-ranking diplomat from one of the Concordium's member species, the Vaylans, known for their diplomatic prowess and philosophical outlook. Unlike the Zoraxians, the Vaylans valued reason and compromise above brute force. "Captain Vega," Zareen began, her melodic voice carrying both curiosity and admiration. "Your actions have sparked significant debate within the Concordium. While many still cling to old ways, others are beginning to question whether domination truly serves the greater good." Elena nodded respectfully, though her expression remained guarded. "Ambassador, I appreciate your candor, but let me make one thing clear. Humanity doesn't seek conflict. We intervene because we believe in protecting those who cannot protect themselves. If the Concordium wishes to maintain its influence, it must earn trust, not demand obedience." Zareen inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the truth in Eleanor's words. "You've given us much to think about, Captain. Perhaps it's time for the Concordium to evolve, to embrace collaboration rather than control. In recognition of your efforts, I propose opening formal negotiations with Krylos 7. Let us find a peaceful resolution to this crisis." Elena allowed herself a small smile, though her tone remained measured. "We're willing to assist, Ambassador, but remember, any agreement must prioritize the well-being of Krylos 7's people. Anything less is unacceptable." As the transmission ended, Marcus Chen turned to Elena, his sharp features breaking into a grin. "Looks like we've got them thinking, Captain. Maybe humanity's biggest victory isn't winning the fight, it's changing the way they see us." Elena nodded, slowly, her gaze drifting back to the view screen where Krylos 7 shone brightly below. "Maybe," she murmured softly, "but the real test will be whether they act on it." In the hours that followed, news of the Odyssey's triumph spread across the galaxy. Other species watched with awe and admiration, inspired by humanity's willingness to stand up for justice, even at great personal risk. For so long, humans had been dismissed as newcomers, too divided and inexperienced to matter. Now they proved that unity and heart could overcome even the most daunting challenges. On the bridge of the Odyssey, Eleanor addressed her crew one final time before preparing to leave orbit. "Today, we reminded the galaxy of something important. Humanity doesn't turn away when others are in need. Not anymore. And if anyone doubts that again, well, let's just say we'll always be ready." Her words drew cheers from the crew, echoing through the corridors of the battered but triumphant ship. As the Odyssey prepared to depart, its engines flared brightly against the backdrop of stars, a symbol of hope, resilience, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. Farther away, aboard the Concordium flagship, Trellis gazed at the same stars, her antennae twitching softly as she contemplated the future. For the first time, she felt a glimmer of optimism. Perhaps the galaxy wasn't doomed to endless cycles of oppression and rebellion. Perhaps, thanks to humanity, a new chapter was beginning, one built on empathy, understanding, and shared purpose. The Odyssey departed Krylos 7 with engines humming softly, leaving behind a world forever changed. The battered ship limped through space, its crew exhausted but triumphant. Though the battle scars etched into its hull told a story of struggle and sacrifice, they also stood as symbols of hope, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming Odds humanity could rise to meet the challenge. Captain Elena Vega stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars streaming past the viewport. Her hands rested lightly on the railing, her thoughts drifting between what had been accomplished and what lay ahead. Behind her, Marcus Chen and Ensign Priya Patel joined silently, their presence offering quiet solidarity. "We did it," Priya said finally, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, tinged with disbelief and pride. "We actually did it." Elena nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Yeah, we did. But this isn't just about us, it's about showing the galaxy what happens when you stand up for what's right, even when everyone tells you it's impossible." Marcus leaned against the wall, crossing his arms thoughtfully. "You think the Concordium will change, or are we just delaying the inevitable?" Eleanor turned to him, her expression thoughtful but resolute. "Change doesn't happen overnight. Some might still see us as a threat, while others will try to learn from this. What matters is that we planted the seed. Whether they nurture it or let it die, that's up to them. On Krylos 7, life began to rebuild. The planet bore the scars of war, shattered cities, scorched landscapes, and countless lives lost. But amidst the ruins, something extraordinary took root. Communities came together like never before, united by a shared vision of renewal. Guerrilla fighters laid down their makeshift weapons to help clear debris. Engineers worked tirelessly to restore power grids and water systems. And elders like Mira guided the younger generation with wisdom born of resilience. In the capital city, a monument was erected in honor of the Odyssey and its crew. Crafted from salvaged materials and illuminated by solar-powered lights, it depicted a human figure standing protectively over a Krylonian family. Beneath it, an inscription read, "To those who fought for us when no one else would, may your courage inspire us all." Every evening, people gathered around the monument to share stories of survival and gratitude. For many, the arrival of the humans marked not just a turning point in their history, but a lesson in unity and compassion. They vowed never to forget the sacrifices made on their behalf, and to carry forward the values embodied by the Odyssey's crew. Within the Concordium, debates raged across diplomatic chambers and council halls. The defeat at Krylos 7 had shaken the coalition to its core, forcing members to confront uncomfortable truths about their methods and motives. While some factions clung stubbornly to old ways, insisting that force was the only language lesser species understood, others pushed for reform. Among these voices was Ambassador Zareen, whose impassioned speeches called for a shift toward cooperation and mutual respect. "Humanity has shown us that strength isn't measured solely by power," she declared during one such session. "It's measured by how we treat those weaker than ourselves. If the Concordium wishes to remain relevant, we must evolve or risk fading into irrelevance." Her words sparked heated discussions, but they also ignited hope among those who longed for change. Slowly but surely, cracks began to form in the rigid structure of the Concordium, allowing new ideas to take root. Negotiations with Krylos 7 resumed, this time with genuine efforts to find common ground rather than impose dominance. Commander Vrax, however, remained a staunch opponent of reform. His pride wounded and his authority questioned, he retreated into isolation, brooding over his failure. Yet even he couldn't deny the ripple effect spreading through the galaxy. Humanity's actions had forced every species to re-evaluate their place in the cosmos, and whether they wanted to be remembered as oppressors or allies. Treeless, on the other hand, embraced the winds of change. She became a vocal advocate for collaboration, using her position to push for policies that prioritized diplomacy over destruction. Though met with resistance, she persisted, driven by the belief that the Concordium could become something greater than it had ever been. Weeks later, aboard the Odyssey, Eleanor received a final transmission from Krylos 7. Elder Mira appeared on the view screen, her frail frame radiating a quiet strength. "Captain Vega," she began, her voice trembling with emotion, "there are no words to express our gratitude. You gave us more than aid. You gave us hope. Because of you, we know that even in our darkest hour, there are those who will stand beside us." Eleanor felt her throat tighten, but she managed a small smile. "Thank you, Elder Mira. Just remember, The hardest battles aren't fought with weapons, they're fought with hearts. Keep fighting and never lose sight of who you are. As the transmission ended, Eleanor stepped back onto the bridge where her crew awaited orders. Ahead of them stretched infinite possibilities, the promise of exploration, discovery, and perhaps even more challenges to overcome. But whatever lay beyond, they faced it together. Farther away, Trellis watched the same, stars from the window of her quarters. A sense of wonder filled her as she contemplated the future, not just for the Concordium but for the galaxy itself. Humanity had proven that even the smallest acts of courage could spark monumental change. And though the road ahead would be long and uncertain, she believed it was a journey worth taking. As the Odyssey disappeared into the vastness of space, its legacy lingered behind, a beacon of hope shining brightly against the darkness. In the end, the message was clear. Humanity didn't seek to conquer or dominate. It sought to uplift, to unite, to remind the universe of one simple truth. When others falter, humanity steps forward, not because it's easy, but because it's right. And sometimes that makes all the difference.